Well, that was something, that Bills press conference. Let's do some thumbs up, thumbs down, and some thumbs sideways as well, and then an overarching narrative and takeaways from the press conference. Before we get there, remember to subscribe to the channel. We got fresh football videos every single day, including throughout the offseason. I'm going to start with thumbs down, okay, because I feel like that's probably the way that most Bills fans feel coming out of that. Biggest thumbs down to me was Terry Pagula's insistence on how good the roster was and how Brandon Beane deserves more credit for what was built. I mean, I think it goes without saying that the Bills have been good, if not very good. I think it goes without saying that there are talented pieces on the roster. How else would you get to the playoffs every single year? But the fact that basically Terry Pagula takes the podium or sits behind a microphone and uses the press conference to set the stage of all that criticism out there about Brandon Beane is not fair. And by essentially bringing up, look at the seeds that we've had, it must mean it's a good roster. And I've heard the people call it a bad roster and they're just wrong. And again, it just sets the tone of defensiveness over Brandon Beane's responsibility in all of this. And I just thought that was the wrong tack. I know you want to present a confidence in what is now. McDermott was then. He's no longer there, so you don't want to gloss him too much because then it seems like you got rid of the wrong guy. Fine. You want a position that we have the right guy still in place for your confidence. Fine. But it doesn't need to be the tone of all you people that keep saying how bad the roster is wrong, and here's why. And by and large, Terry probably should have done an opening statement about Sean McDermott and his thankfulness and gratitude. He probably should have explained in an opening statement about the decision of power and why he went to keeping Beane and not keeping McDermott. But after that, I don't know if he should have opened himself up for questions, and he certainly should not have jumped in to answers that Brandon Beane was making, because that did not look good. It looked like daddy protecting his son from criticisms at a Little League game. Okay, that was the first thumbs down. The second thumbs down was the fact that Keon Coleman has now become the ink blot test of the Buffalo Bills. I mean, yeah, he's an important draft pick. And yes, that organization, I'm sure, thought there was going to be far more from the 33rd overall pick, a wide receiver selected at the top of the second round, a target for Josh Allen. He was benched for immaturity. We all know that. But the fact that this press conference centered so much around Keon Coleman makes me feel like I could do an entire video just based on that. That how you view Keon Coleman is how you must view the Buffalo Bills. And what second-round wide receiver has ever invoked that much scrutiny? And I think that Keon Coleman has now kind of become the filter through which what you view the Buffalo Bills as. And it's an indicator of the type of scrutiny and pressure that this current Bills team is under, that every maneuver is viewed as boom or bust, and who did it and who deserves blame. Because how many times in a 1-hour press conference can we go around about who picked Keon Coleman and who was right and who was wrong? And the fact that Terry jumps in to protect his son, Brandon Beane, hey, the coaching staff wanted Keon Coleman, and Brandon was just being a good teammate, was something that did not need to be said. Because again, Keon Coleman is still on this roster. He's still in that locker room. I mean, how can this guy go out there and still wear a Bills uniform when he knows that the owner is like, yeah, you know what? The GM really didn't even want you. He was just being a good teammate. I mean, bad. And Beane tried to pick up the pieces afterwards, but let's face it, the toothpaste was already out of the tube. Sorry to mix metaphors there. Whose pick was it? Well, Brandon Beane is saying it was collaborative, and that was the right thing for him to try to pick up those pieces. But when Pagula says that, no, he was being a team player, it flies in the face of the video evidence that we have that before the draft, Beane was on record as being happy that he ran a slower 40 time because that means he would be available to him. Now, maybe does that mean that he didn't want him at 33 and wanted him at 45 or 51. I mean, perhaps, but still, he was interested enough in Keon Coleman that he actually talked about his 40 time at the combine. So that's a big thumbs down there. The Keon Coleman thing just somehow becomes the ink blot test of everything in the Bills organization. That really shouldn't be. Next, Beane's sensitivity to the criticism about him not being a team player is a big thumbs down. I mean, to suggest that you came home and your wife is in tears because she heard a report or she read something online that maybe you didn't work well with McDermott or you try to push him out. I mean, look, I'm sorry if your family feels, that you've been unfairly portrayed, but you've been the general manager of an NFL team for nearly a decade. I mean, we're not used to critiques at this point. And if we're not, I don't think that needs to be brought up in a press conference as though as woe is us. Look at how unfair this is. You've made my wife cry. I mean, I don't blame anybody's spouse for wanting their husband or wife to be portrayed positively, but a report makes you cry and then your husband feels so bad about that he's got to bring it up at a press conference to look what you people have done. I mean, come on. Just this is big boy stuff. You can't talk about Super Bowl or nothing, and we've got to get over a hump, and this is unacceptable. And then in the same breath, Beane, you need to be nicer. Those all go hand in hand. The pressure is so high. The stakes are so unbelievably high that guess what comes with that? Real disappointment, real frustration, real anger, real sadness. And sometimes things get written that kind of reflect that. And look at what you mean people have done. I mean, please. So I just feel like Beane needs to be like, hey, yeah, you know what? I know people are frustrated. We are too. I am too. I want you to know I'm collaborative. I've trusted Sean in a lot of instances. You're not always going to agree, but he and I had a great working relationship. And he did mention that at times. But then when you come back to, I'm fighting back tears or my family's so distraught or I can't believe this has been said that I've been anything but a team player. Either you're going so far one way to defend yourself because it's true, or you just got to reel back your defense mechanism of critique because, dude, that's going to come with the territory here. Right now, one guy didn't have his job and you got to keep yours. So it's time for you to just project positivity and confidence and not, how dare anybody question my integrity? Big thumbs down there. Again, Terry Pagula, and this goes back to one of the original points, thumbs down for using the Josh Allen pick as the reason why Brandon Beane's the smartest guy in the room. There's no doubt it's a franchise-altering decision. And Beane gets credit, deserves credit, should always deserve credit for that. But to kind of use that as the rubber stamp at the end of the press conference of, again, period, end of sentence, he drafted Josh Allen, and that's all that needs to be said, is just not a great way to continually, to me, grade out how your front office is doing. That's a long time ago. And if we're at the point where we need change to get over the hump, if you're Terry Pagula or the Bills organization, that has to also be drafting better players, acquiring better talent. That much has to be part of this equation. And I think one thing that was missing here was the specifics in how Sean McDermott failed them. Beane didn't want to say anything specific, which I think was the right diplomatic way to do it. It would have felt like piling on the dead guy. But for Terry Pagula to bring up, I looked in that locker room, everybody's crying, and I realized that change need to be done. And by the way, the roster's really good. Okay, so then you think it comes down to coaching. And I think at one point, Terry said on-field leadership. They needed different on-field leadership, which again is fine. But what leadership qualities did Sean McDermott not have that you need to see? And I think there was a follow-up question in there that was really good, which was you brought up that this team was dependent on the back end of the roster in significant roles in the playoffs. So that can't be a check mark in Beane's box, but not McDermott, because McDermott's got to coach up those guys at the back end of the roster to get into the playoffs and to fall overtime short of getting to an AFC championship game. It can't be one or the other. It cannot be that both the roster was good enough that even the backups played big roles and the coaching's not good enough. They couldn't get more out of the backups. And then finally, there just was so little specific detail on the roster itself and what needs to be better and what needs to be better about the team. It was just kind of these very vagaries. We got to get over the hump, blah, blah, blah. We're collaborative, a lot of generalities. And I think from a fan perspective, you're like, how does the defense get better? How do the free agent signings improve? How does drafting and finding wide receivers improve? How does the offensive line look next year? What are we doing about some of the pieces that were not good enough in 2025? Okay, that's my thumbs downs. Here's my thumbs up. I did think it was just good to verbalize Super Bowl aspirations. That, hey, we've gotten so far, that's not good enough, Super Bowl. And Beane stopped short of that, but I thought that Terry verbalized that it is Super Bowl. So that's good. I mean, that reflects what Western New Yorkers want to hear. That's how they feel, that just getting to the divisional round of the playoffs, getting to an AFC championship game, but losing is not a successful season right now. It has to be about the ring, the Lombardi, and, finally getting over the hump. And so fans and ownership is in lockstep. It would have been, I think, more demoralizing if you just heard, hey, just getting to the playoffs every single year is good and we'll spin the wheel when we get there. Because that's kind of what Yankee fans are right now lamenting, that they don't have an ownership that will actually say it has to be a World Series. That's the bar here. So you'd rather hear that. That's good. I also thought potentially good is that Brandon Beane says that the coach and the GM will both have simultaneous paths to the owner and that it won't be Brandon Beane waving the wand. I think there's been a fear from Bills fans that the next head coach just has to play by Brandon Beane's rules now because he's the director of football ops and the GM. And he says the coach-GM relationship will be the same, similar to him and Sean McDermott. And I think that's probably just healthier. So that probably deserves a thumbs up. We will see if that is reality, how it looks, or maybe that was just, how it was dressed up by Beane. But at the moment, I'll be optimistic. I think also the fact that Josh is going to be a collaborator on the head coaching decision is healthy, is good. I mean, the reason that we're all here and Sean McDermott had to be fired in their estimation is that it has to be different. And the different is you have to be a Super Bowl team. And why does it have to be a Super Bowl team right now? Because you've got a window of about 5 to 6 years where Josh Allen will be one of the best quarterbacks in football. So you've got to take advantage of that. The clock is ticking. We all know this. And it keeps coming back to how long do you have this Josh Allen? How long will you ever have a franchise quarterback that you can depend on to get you to the promised land? So we're talking about the elephant in the room, which is these moves are made for Josh Allen and the timing of Josh Allen's career. This major move is about the moment here and now. This has to be different now. It can't be different 5 years from now or 10 years from now. It has to be different now. So the fact that Josh collaborates is a good thing. You'd rather hear that than we won't take any input of any of the players. That would make it feel like Josh is being ostracized or isolated or just, not respected enough. Okay. And I think also the one thing that Terry was not overtly transparent on is whether Josh was happy or not about McDermott getting fired. And that was smart. We did not need to hear that because there is no win there. There is no win. If Terry says Josh was very upset, but it's a move that I had to make, it feels like they went against the wishes of the star quarterback of a very popular, for the most part, head coach that most fans think kind of got wronged here. If you say Josh was thrilled, obviously that is not going to paint him in a good light either. So thankfully, he didn't walk himself into a trap there. And I also think, just as a general thumbs up, the constant drumbeat of we've got to get over the hump is good. You want that urgency from everybody in the organization. And I will bring it back to the Yankees. the fact that they make the playoffs, they get home playoff dates potentially. Brian Cashman and the family that owns the Yankees, the Steinbrenner family, just feels like, you know what? Par for the course is fine these days. And you just didn't want to hear that. So the fact that they are verbalizing, we got to get over the hump, we got to be better than this, I think is a good thing. My thumb sideways is going to be Beane's accountability factor here. Some people might give it a thumbs down. I mean, he did say, quote, I can do better. Okay. And he did show some remorse for his defense of the wide receivers in his condescending tone last year on Buffalo Sports Talk on WGR with the morning show. And, you know, he framed it as, I'm just really loyal and passionate about my guys, and they are being unfairly scapegoated. Okay, it's a way to frame it. I would have rather just said, you know what? I should have handled that better. Lost my cool. I like my guys there. I like my wide receivers, but you know what? I just have to be better in that spot. I don't think you need to also say, but I'm a really passionate guy. I'm being loyal to those guys. You know, if anything, I'm guilty of being too loyal or whatever. You just don't couch it. Just own it. Bad moment for me. I got to be better. I will be better. And I think that goes a long way. So it was kind of a half regret that he gave and a half mea culpa. So yes, fine. No, could have been a little bit better. My overarching takeaway is when the next head coach is hired, there has to be another press conference. Maybe this time with just Beane taking questions and Terry can sit this one out or Terry can be in the background about how Brandon Beane specifically decides to improve the roster from what it just was. Because if he's going to sell the story that the only reason the 2025 Buffalo Bills fell short was because they didn't have the right head coach, or that the only thing that the 2026 team needs is a new voice at head coach, he's going to come off as a charlatan, as a snake oil salesman. We all know that a change could be really good here, but we also all know that the roster has to be better as well. Those two things have to go hand in hand. And there has to be some real specific details. We don't have to tell all the secrets of the school, but you do have to say, this is what we have to do better. This is where we saw a need for improvement. This is where we project us trying to, become better. Something like that. Because again, today was mostly about generalities and vibes, and we got to get over the hump, and we want to be collaborative, and we had a really good working relationship and all that. I think if the fan base is about to trust Brandon Beane on this next chapter, there has to be some evidence that he recognizes the faults of this current roster, because there certainly were flaws and faults. And I suppose the new head coach will help inform that. So maybe that's where you want to wait it out. But this next press conference has to be a little bit more clear, some more clarity, and not just, again, everything is fine about the roster. We just need a new voice, because that ain't going to cut it. And at the end of the day, I just think that Western New Yorkers, Bills fans in general, nationwide, worldwide, I think they could just sniff out integrity. I think it's just a thing that's kind of born into that region of the country, that city, that fan base. I think the whole thing is a distrust about how Brandon Beane got elevated. And larger picture, you hear Terry Pagula reference multiple times how difficult it is in the family because of the tragedy to his wife and how tumultuous that has been. And that is totally understandable. I mean, Kim's health has obviously, been an incredibly heavy burden for them. And one could only imagine how difficult that's been and why you would recede from the spotlight, et cetera. But I think what fans don't want to know, they don't want the idea that Brandon Beane ascends to a spot because Terry just needs somebody who can, has just basically stepped into the role of family confidant. it can't only be that. It has to be he's really good at the job as well. And Terry brought up this defense of, you guys don't know what you're talking about if you think the roster's bad, and that's not what you want to hear, because then it means that Brandon can do no wrong. And I think that you're watching Terry potentially hold on to the stability of Brandon Beane amongst the instability of his family and want to believe that Beane is going to fix it and want to believe it can be fixed. And if Beane ascends to that throne by sniping or pushing out or winning a power struggle over McDermott, the fan base just sniffs that stuff out. They just have, Bills fans have a BS detector, and it's really sharp, and they're not going to go for that. McDermott had a lot of integrity for all of his flaws, for all of his, his idiosyncrasies in 13 seconds in game management. He was built of integrity. And that was the one thing you kept hearing from the players on all their responses to him getting fired. Great man, next to me, by my side, great coach, best coach you ever had. I could go to him for anything. He was a man of really high integrity, whether he was flawed as head coach, certainly possible. Whether his coaching was part of the problem, certainly possible. But he was a man of high integrity. And what Bills fans don't want to see is a guy that's not of high integrity ascending to the throne because he won a political power play. They want to know that guy deserves ascension to the throne. And so that's where Beane needs to explain exactly what his vision is to prove he's got the goods. All right, that's my breakdown of that Bills press conference. If you enjoyed what you watched here, just make sure you hit subscribe below, because all you guys mean a lot here in the subscribers. And also, we have fresh football videos every single day, including throughout the offseason. So make sure you keep it right here on this YouTube channel. I'm Damon Amendolara. You can also catch me weekday mornings on Mad Dog Sports Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 82. See you next time.